All right. Should we go?
Yeah, okay, that's good. Okay, guys, thanks all for coming. I guess firstly, thank you to our sponsors here today, and for Ellen and Craig for putting on a good conference for us again this year. We're going to be talking today about continuous delivery. My name's Stephen.
I'm Brendan. We both work for DS.
Yeah, and DS makes software for people. And we're pretty excited to be talking about continuous delivery. We're going to talk about how we've applied continuous delivery for some of our customers. Maybe just a quick show of hands. Who's heard of the term continuous delivery? Okay, that's excellent. All right, good. So maybe just for the benefit of those who aren't familiar with what it is, it's basically the process of releasing small changes frequently in very small batches to your customers. So you practice this very quick iterative cycle of releasing changes frequently. It's going to be a fairly interactive session. We can take questions as you go, or we're going to have about half the presentation. It's going to be quite interactive, so feel free to yell out if you do have any questions as we go. It's not dangerous continuous delivery, by the way. This is an accident from somewhere else, so you should be okay.
I was originally here just to hit the space bar for Steve, but he's good with it. He's going.
Thanks, Brian. And we're at uni today. It feels like we should go to the pub at lunchtime as well. Do you reckon?
Yeah.
So great. All right. So the first half of this talk, we're going to look at some of the practices that make continuous delivery possible, and they are how you deploy code and how you measure the effects that code has on your customers. Okay. And then the second half, we're actually going to do some live coding on stage. Right. We're going to break a lot of rules, and we're going to do some experiments on you guys as well. Right. So if you've got a phone or something handy that you can go to our site that we've built, that would be awesome, and we can get some real metrics, and we might actually be able to kickstart our business out of this as well, Bruno.
We'll see.
Live coding in a demonstration, I don't think anything's going to go wrong. We're not breaking any rules.
It's me as well, so if anyone's worked with me here before, often does go wrong.
And then we'll finish up with some takeaways. We want you to get something out of this. And I think if there is a single takeaway that we'd like you to take, and that is to experiment. Not just experiment with the products that you're building, but also experiment with the way that you do things, like how you organise your teams. Experiment in that way as well. One of the things that Brendan and I really like about Agile is the retrospectives. So this is in Agile, we have a retrospective that allows us to reflect on what we've done, and it really just empowers the team to actually change, right, and do better. Find what works for them and change. And I think, it's all about change, right? Experiment, get out of the patterns that you're currently doing, do something different, and see what happens. It's really, it's okay to fail,
Shall I record? I've got my video camera with. Do you want me to record?
It's up to you. Maybe not.
We've got.
It's fine.
We've got video, but you can record it. It's fine. Just experiment. We want. It's okay to fail, right? I mean, it's kind of like you just got to get out and do it. It's kind of a bit like dating, right? You just got to go and do it, unless, of course, you're married and you probably shouldn't be dating. But okay, so we're going to just run through, just for a bit of context, some of the delivery patterns that we've both worked on. The first pattern that we've seen and we've experienced, and we kind of don't do it anymore, which is a good thing, which is the single deadline, right? So I guess we're probably all familiar with the single deadline. This is where we have all these features have got to be delivered by such and such a date. Okay, and that date is typically driven by marketing or maybe a commitment to the executive team, but there's a hard date that we've got to work to. Now, this is a really risky way of building software, right? Because rarely do you make that date. As you get further down the project, you discover new scope, you discover integration issues. It becomes really, really hard to make that delivery date. So we generally don't want to be doing this sort of software development. People generally I mean, the project starts off well, right? It's waterfall. You have lots of parties at the start, and everything seems good until a couple of months before that date comes around, and then you realise there's a lot of work to do and there's a lot of issues. So generally, these projects don't end too well.
Can I just say, this is like really being at uni. Like, everyone's just kind of broken up.
So who's doing this, or who's heard of this kind of single deadline? Do we we all know what this is? Yeah. Right. Good. So the second approach that we see, and we've used, in actual fact, we've used this many times. We've spent many years practicing this approach, which is like the regular delivery. Okay, this is so. Maybe at the end of every iteration or every second iteration we do a release. That means sort of every 2 weeks, maybe every 4 weeks we push out a release. This works really well, right? I mean, it gives the team a good rhythm. They get into a mode of delivering. It still can be quite hard because sometimes your releases are still manual. Okay, there's still a lot of effort or cost involved in doing that release. So there's still a lot of pain. And sometimes you don't do all that stuff you need to do for the iteration. You don't make all that commitment in the release. And sometimes you maybe not actually release, you defer the release, right? So you think you're doing Agile, you sign up to this Agile team, and in fact you're not travelling at the speed you need to, and then you sort of start skipping releases, and then But so the most important thing with this approach is to actually try and release on that date. Okay, and if you don't have a feature ready, that's okay. Move it to the next release. But it's a really good model, and this is certainly better than the first approach. This is definitely less risky than the first approach. The third model that we've had a lot of fun doing and a lot of success implementing is continuous delivery. So this is where we actually deploy much smaller changes to our customers very, very frequently. Okay, we even put out features that are incomplete just to get them into production. Okay, so this is actually shipping incomplete features into production, and we'll talk more about the techniques for managing that in a minute. It is hard. Continuous delivery is really hard, and I think it's hard because you have to have involvement from not just the delivery teams, not just the devs, the testers, and the BAs, but you need involvement from a lot of other people as well. Okay, so the product owners have to be really closely involved in this because it changes the way that they prioritise features, it changes the way they plan. And then you've got marketing also has to be involved in this, legal have to be involved in this, your support team has to be involved in this. If you're pushing out changes daily, then all those people need to come together. There's not a piece of software that you can install to do continuous delivery, and that's what makes it hard. It's more of a culture in the team, and everyone has to sign up for it. People sort of think maybe it's pretty cowboy behaviour. You push out code to production multiple times a day. What about testing? What about, that sounds risky. Okay, it sounds scary, but there's still decisions made. We still typically have a go, no-go decision before releasing. So we get the right people together. So we talk to the ops guys and say we're going to push out this feature, and they have to be understanding what impact it might have on operations. We also have to talk to the support team. They might get an increased number of support calls or questions. So we get those people together. We have a 5-minute chat often to say what's going to happen, and then if everyone's happy, we deploy. Okay, and because we do this every day or multiple times a day, we get really good at it, and it becomes really fast and efficient, and it's a good process.
Next slide.
Next slide. Thanks, Benno. So, why do we like doing this? Well, we like it because it makes deployment a non-event. Okay, because we do deployment so frequently, it becomes so easy. It just becomes something that we just become so natural with, and this is a really good thing because I guess we've all worked on teams where we have to deploy, and then it becomes an all-night exercise, and you get a bit of a hangover the next day trying to recover from that. But because you do it so frequently, it just becomes, we've just done a deploy, and that is a really good position to be in. It's also really good for your customers as well, right? Because you're actually pushing stuff out really frequently, so your customers like it as well. Most customers like to see change. Perhaps they're quite understanding if the features aren't quite right or quite complete. I think that's okay. Most people understand, and as long as they see change, that's actually a good thing, and they can give you feedback on what you're doing as well, and that's good for you.
And you can also adapt and have an edge over your competitors who are possibly got longer release cycles as well.
Absolutely. We'll talk about how we've applied this to a customer in a minute. But yeah, just being able to move faster, because you can deploy more, you can move faster, you can do more experiments. So what's really key to this is automating your deployments. And it doesn't matter how you do the deployment, as long as it's automated, as long as you deploy the same way to every single environment. So to your test environments, to your dev environments, to your pre-production environments, do it the same to every single environment. That's really, really important. So we're going to talk about Haru. This is a customer where we've applied continuous delivery. So Haru are hotel and accommodation site. They first went live in about August 2011, and that was about 2.5 months after the team started. They're based in Melbourne. So innovation and lowering costs are their key principles. Okay, it's a really competitive market what these guys are involved in. They've obviously got local competition from the likes of What If, but they've also got the international competition as well. So these guys need to do something different to be better than the rest. Okay, and one of the things that was different from the rest is being able to do things quickly and being able to experiment. So before we actually started building any features for Haru, the first thing we did was to automate everything, automate the entire deployment cycle, automate infrastructure, automate testing. So we did all that before we started building features, and that put us in a really good position to start building the site and getting it out to the customers early. And that early feedback really shaped the product and where it is today. One of the and that kind of culture that started in Haru is still there now. And one of the features they did recently, one of the experiments they did recently, was to provide 6 points for some of the hotels in Melbourne CBD. And this was trying to aim at the business traveller, so 6 frequent flying points for every $1. And this worked. They deployed it. Next day, looked at the stats, looked really good. Okay, well, let's push it a bit further. So they rolled it out to some other cities. Looked really good. And now it's across all major cities, all capital cities in Australia. And it mounts up to 15% of all their bookings. Okay, so that one experiment now is 15% of all bookings. Now that's just one experiment. They have lots of experiments. Some work, some don't work, right? But it doesn't matter because it's really cheap to do. Very minimal investment on an experiment. You can do lots. You can get some failures. You can get some successes. So it's all about experimenting. It is easier in green fields as well, right? I mean, continuous delivery is hard wherever, but it's certainly a lot easier in green fields. You can do it in legacy, but yeah. So once you've deployed, the next thing to do is measure the effect that code has on your customers. What's that code doing? What's happening in production? In production is the really important thing. Okay, so what's it actually doing? So the most important thing here is to know what your business metrics are. Okay, so what is it you want? Okay, this is really important. So do you want more site visitors? Do you want more of your regular visitors to come back? Do you want to transition people from their shopping basket to the checkout? Okay, so that's the goal, all right? And you need to work backwards from that goal. And in doing that, you need to know what's happening. Okay, so you need to put metrics throughout your code to track what's happening in production. And nowadays, when we kick off a story, we'll talk about acceptance criteria on the story, but we'll also talk about what metrics we want to put in there as well, so we can track what's happening. So think about metrics. They're very cheap to add. You just literally code of metrics. You can use other tools as well. Like Google Analytics are okay. They're only going to give you so much. So get into the habit, I think, of just capturing your own metrics. Very cheap, doesn't really cost anything in the code, but they will tell you lots of insights. When you capture them, you probably don't even know what they're going to be used for, right? And then it's a case of just correlating stuff together, and you can get some really interesting insights. So, you know what your business goal is. You know what the minimum. You know what you want to achieve, right? Now the next thing you need to do is work out what the minimal change is to satisfy that. So this is this is actually quite hard, right? Because we're all really tempted, I mean, as sort of engineers, to go out there and say, okay, I know what to do, I know how I'm going to fix this problem or achieve this goal. And you end up building something that you might not need. So the really important thing is don't spend time building features that you don't need. Just cut it back, keep cutting it back until you get to the core thing to test your hypothesis, okay? I mean, we do it all the time. We want to use some new technology or something, and we just want to get it out there. But most of the time, we don't need it. It's not a problem that needs to be solved. So really look at how you can just keep cutting back and find that minimal thing. And that's just, you know, that is probably really hard. So just try and do the best you can and just to really pare stuff back. And then once you figure out what that change is, you just run your experiment. So you deploy it into production, you gather all those metrics that you've been capturing, and then you learn from them. Okay, so you look at what's happening, you learn, and you just keep doing that cycle again and again and again. And it's just basically iterating to greatness. Okay, just keep doing it multiple times a day, and it's fun, right? It's great. You know, you deploy something, you see some numbers. Do they look about right? Okay, looks good. Let's try something else. And it's these small changes that you can keep doing deltas between and seeing what effect it's had. So that's a bit of the principles around what you need to do continuous delivery. We're now going to break the rules, and we're going to demonstrate some of these principles right now with a live app that we've built. So I'm going to hand over to Brendan.
Switch the thing. So yeah, this is my first time I've ever presented at a conference, so why not actually do a live demo? Right, so we've come up with a little app just especially for this conference. It's called lastmeme.com. This is our MVP, very simple. Just displays a meme. If this takes off, maybe we'll go large and hope to get bought by Google or something. I don't know. I think the meme market may be a little bit oversaturated, but we'll see. So this is basically our production server. You can see lastmeme.com. It's been written so you can all use your mobiles, and as we actually release features, you'll be able to use the site. Not only do we have a production server, so this is all on AWS. We've actually also got some stats. So this is, as Steve was saying, our metrics are a key part of continuous delivery, being able to track what is happening on our site. As you can see, people are actually using it, which is good. Seeing that one image, I know it's pretty amazing, but that's our MVP. That was our sort of goal there. This resolution's pretty bad. I don't know what the resolution is. It's not a normal resolution. So you can see we've got some other stuff. We've got image views, we've got active users, we've got some sort of more average views per user, network, and CPU. All right, so we'll probably visit that a few times throughout this little demo. CI. So this is Jenkins. I'm assuming everyone here uses CI. Yeah? Yeah? No? That's pretty weird. All right. Maybe not Jenkins. I don't know, but Jenkins is free, so that's why I've used that more than any other CI server. You can see there's 3 builds we've got here. We've got unit tests, acceptance tests, and production deployed. That's not really the most interesting view, though. We've got this other view. This is the delivery pipeline. So this is what we actually use to deploy to production. So how this works is we've got unit tests. So as a developer pushes code, unit tests will run. Then if that passes, acceptance tests run, and then we go straight to production. So this obviously model isn't going to be right for everyone. As you push code, you might not want to go directly to production. That's fairly risky. You've got to really have a good set of tests under your belt to be able to do that, because you're not going to have obviously a test team manually testing your code. So a more typical example of this would have many more stages in this pipe. You might have different environments that you deploy to, and there might be manual stages involved there. So it's like, all right, are we going to deploy to staging? All right, so someone will click that button. Depending on how advanced you are, because there are companies that do this, but and we're one, lastmeme.com.
Yeah,
there you go.
We're doing it.
So I'm just going to push some code. So we're actually not, because we want to be in control of what we're doing here, and we've already got things that can go wrong. We are going to manually trigger this, just so I can talk a little bit about what's happening. If that worked, so I hope that works. Yep, cool. So we're going to deploy this change. So first it's going to run through our unit tests, and then acceptance tests, and to production. I probably had some other stuff to say while this was happening, but I've forgotten. So it'll come back to me later. So this first little change that we're deploying is something really simple. We're just demonstrating that our environment works to ourselves, and I guess our main goal with this app is to increase traffic. That's where we're going to make all our millions of dollars.
Right. So our business goal is to try and get more users on the site, and then more users might means we can put some AdWords on there.
Yeah, so that's
we're going
to make heaps of money. Anyway, so obviously we've made random images. Isn't that amazing? No one's done that before.
Yeah.
Right. And they're really funny, depending on, that's yours, Steve. Anyway, and then they're sort of semi-random. You're not guaranteed to get a new one all the time. We're not really seriously going to be using this app.
It's going to take too long to build the algorithm to make it really truly random, so we cut back there.
Yeah, cut back, but it's minimum viable product. All right, so that's an example of. So I'm going to do something else. I've got more, Steve.
So what's next? We've got some users on the site. Can we have a look at the metrics and see?
Let's see if that increases.
So we've done a deploy. We want to figure out, what.
Oh, look at that!
Oh, look at that!
That was me. I just doubled your outro.
We've got a lot of users, Brendan.
Yeah.
We're doing well. We're doing really well. What else can we do to make this better?
That is better, I have to say. Like a few extra images and bam, we've got. Actually, there's a bit of a drop off. Ooh. Maybe it didn't last. All right, I've got more.
So what's our next feature?
So I'm thinking of maybe getting in some voting. Let's vote on images.
That's good, because that means users are going to stick around and vote, and
maybe
we'll
see. We'll learn from our metrics. Yeah. All right. So I haven't actually deployed it, so you're not going to see anything. So another thing that we're going to demonstrate here, something that you'll no doubt be concerned about if you're going straight to production, is if I'm a developer, I don't want to push code. If it's going to go straight into production, that's scary, right? So how do I get around that? We're using something here. It's pretty much one of the best tools that you can use for this particular problem is feature toggling. It's a fairly simple concept. It's just you switch on and off code, whether it's in your back end or your front end. That's up to the feature that you're employing, and there's extra issues that you can have with introducing feature toggles, like with testing and all sorts of stuff. You've got to really think about it. But
have you got some code that we can see on feature toggles? Are you going to do Vim as well on stage?
No.
Okay.
I don't know why. It's not meant to be white.
Okay.
There's something funny with the resolution. This is the yeah. Anyway, don't throw me like that, Steve.
We'll get Vim out later.
We'll get Vim out. So I've actually deployed that feature. So we've got more images. Nothing actually looks different, really. So I'm going to activate our feature toggle. All right. So now you can actually vote. If you think it's funny or if you think it's stupid, which they probably mostly are. They are memes. Memes are definitely not for everyone.
So we had that code in production, but it was effectively dormant. Right?
Yeah.
It was just there. And then the developer, in this sort of model, the developer is always responsible for making sure that you can always deploy the code. And then you still have that sort of product owner that may say, okay, I want to just turn on that feature now. Okay, we've got all the ducks lined up. It's all ready to go. Done the campaign. And then turn that feature on, right? So people are
so I'm not actually. Maybe I should vote. I think that's funny. I picked that one. All right. That one's silly. That one. No. All right. See, this is what happens. Here we go. I don't know. Never seen that before, honestly. All right.
That might be a good problem. We're scaling. We've been.
That could be something about our. Look at our traffic. That's crazy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is there about 50-50 of you that have got the old and new?
Do you like that one? I did that one.
Nice. You're good, man.
Yeah. I'm down with memes now. I used to really not be that across them, but
so this is just A/B testing, and that's obviously really useful to be able to do that and run experiments at the A/B test level as well.
Yeah.
So we can collect metrics and see which one people like the most.
Yeah.
Whether people like to use funny or stupid, or whether they like to.
I didn't actually put that I'm not capturing that really. I think we've sort of covered the metric gathering process.
So
we've dropped. Maybe people got a bit sick of the memes. We actually released more memes to see if that would also increase traffic. Obviously, you guys aren't into memes. So I think I'm done.
Yeah, and I guess just touching on some of those points about zero downtime is that, as you can see, those green lines are where we actually did the deploy, but the app was still running. So we have support for deploying code, deploying a new version of the app, still have that old version of the app accept traffic, and have the new app loaded as well. And so once all the visitors have finished requests on the old app, the new app actually kicks in. So that's also, if you're going to be doing deploys multiple times a day, that's obviously really kind of, you need to do that. And it's pretty common practices and patterns for doing that as well.
Yeah.
So it's all doable.
Yeah, but you're always pushing small changes to production. They're not big bang sort of changes generally. Often you have to do that. That'll be something behind a toggle that you may not, release, switch on for more than a week. That's not what you generally want to do. You want to be releasing things constantly and allowing people to actually use them. But reality is, as apps get bigger, changes become harder. So certain changes are going to require more time. So yeah, and you really do have to think about how your strategy for doing that, like zero downtime. Removing columns from databases. With Rails, for example, it's actually not a trivial thing to do. You've got to have a process. It's almost like you patch the code, release the code, and then you have another commit that actually removes whatever that field is.
So when you were working on the Huru stuff, how long was the pipeline to actually get a change from a developer to production?
So Huru actually has 2 manual points. There's one to staging and one to production. I think it currently is around half an hour, which they think is too long, and it probably is too long. Not many things go into production that are a problem, because fairly solid automated tests. Still there's some flakies in there which sort of make that a little bit problematic at times, but yeah, it's fairly fast. Like half an hour, most people probably think that's pretty good, right?
The staging environment is just the Splunk test.
It's a bit of people like to still do a little bit of manual testing, right? And we actually, as developers, still in that particular project now, because I'm back there, funnily enough, we have a Kanban wall. Don't really have testers anymore. Other devs are testing other devs' cards, and that's pretty interesting. Yeah, because different mindset there, really. We've got Tal's brother, he's still there as the tester. Yeah, Gabe, he's on our backs all the time, but yeah, we're getting better at it. So that's another way of doing things again. But yeah.
Just a question, how good are the customers are probably the testers, if anything? Are they
Sometimes.
giving you feedback?
So you really have to.
Feedback's in there for a long time.
So we use Splunk as well. So Splunk, and you've got to have a lot of alerts, so air brake and stuff like that. So whenever something goes wrong, we want to be alerted as soon as possible. So no matter what time of the night is, someone's getting paged if something, and that's anyone on the team basically can have that role.
Page.
So you get paged on your phone. It's pager duty, I think, is what we use for that. So yeah.
So the team actually own the operations as well.
Yeah.
So the developers will get woken up at night.
Yeah.
So if you code that breaks. So and that's good, right? Because they're much more careful, or they're much more. They're going to go and fix the problems, right? So they're going to fix the memory leaks, because the developers don't like getting woken up.
Yeah. There is compensation in the form of, I think, half day off or something.
But if you, I guess also, just going back to your point about how fast is that, how fast is the build to production? It's kind of important because with this model, if there is a problem, if we have broken something, we like to, our strategy for dealing with that is not to roll back to change, but to just keep rolling forward. Okay, because that's just process that we're all used to. So we just go, right, there's a problem, and it's, get it out, get the fix out as quick as possible. I mean, you obviously do have strategies for rolling back if you need to, but typically you don't want to exercise those because that's not something you get used to doing, so it's going to go wrong. So roll forward as much as you can. That's a good strategy.
I want also set iterations or set sprints. How does this difference work?
So yeah, innovations are kind of different. I think Brendan can talk about the Kanban stuff there, but because you don't know what you're going to do from one day to the next, it all depends on your experiment. So your planning is actually a little bit different. I mean, you've got some high-level themes that you want to work on, but you don't necessarily have a big backlog of prioritised stories and stories that have been analysed. You kind of just work day to day.
Yeah, there still is planning, so you're still going to have like features that you want to develop, and you do have a backlog, but you can't say this iteration we're going to have this feature out there. As a product owner, you might have that feature out like tomorrow, for all you know. So you really have. Sorry.
You just have continuous releases.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it empowers you, but you've also it does change how you plan. Right.
And still showcases. I think that's still obviously something important to do. So take every week, every second week, do a showcase to everyone involved, all the business, to actually celebrate what you've done and have a look back at what's happened and what's worked. And typically a lot of that revolves around the metrics in terms of what experiments we ran, what worked, what didn't work.
You also mentioned automation in infrastructure. What are some of the teams in infrastructure that you successfully managed to automate?
So even for this demo here, we actually automated all the infrastructure. It's in the cloud. It's in AWS. So we spun up a web server, a stats server, a CI, and also Memcache as well for just some persistence. It's all automated through CloudFormation, which is an AWS tool. You use anything. You use APIs in Amazon to allow you to create servers and destroy servers. All of that's automated, even just for this demo, just because that's what we're used to. And if there's a problem, we just tear it down and start again. If your servers have been running for weeks and weeks and weeks, that actually makes us pretty nervous. So the idea of uptime doesn't really count anymore. It's like, if it's new, I know it's going to be better than if it's old. So that's really good. Okay, so there's just a couple more things to cover off. So we've got to say, don't do this actually. Don't attempt this unless you're doing these things. Okay, so use version control. I guess we're all using version control. It's so accessible with like GitHub and Bitbucket and what have you. But also version control everything, right? So we mentioned that infrastructure. All our infrastructure is version controlled too, right? So config, everything has to be version controlled. You need to be able to tear down and create environments very quickly. You need to have confidence in your tests.
Very important, right? Especially if you're going straight to prod. I wouldn't recommend everyone just going straight to prod.
So it's not just about code coverage. It's not about, I've got 100% code coverage. It's about knowing that your tests are going to catch the things that matter. Okay, so good tests.
And in saying that, your alerts too are very important. So you don't want just everything making an alert. So that's one problem you can have. Everything raises alert. You're not going to be happy if you're on PagerDuty and you're getting alerted for, I don't know. You want something that's serious to be alerting you. So alerts are important. What was the other thing? Tests. Tests are important.
Yeah.
We already know that, don't we?
Well, you wrote some good tests, didn't you, Ben?
Oh, in this app, you should see them.
And practice continuous integration as well. So everyone has to be continuously integrated multiple times a day onto master, onto trunk, whatever you want to call it. Doing proper CI, not working on their own branches. Everyone needs to be pushed into CI regularly each day. That's important. And obviously when CI breaks, I think as Brendan mentioned, everyone's got to fix it. Right? That's the priority for the team. If something breaks in the deployment, that becomes priority. That has to be
You can't
fixed.
release to prod until that's it's good to go again.
And sorry, question.
Yes. How do you usually deploy using a hot deploy, or do you need to reboot something? And if you have to reboot, say, the web server or the database, how do you manage the production website that doesn't shut down?
Okay, so the question was, how do we manage deployments for zero downtime? And do we have to reboot stuff or stop and start services? We use Nginx as our web server in this case, and we're using Rails as not Rails, but Ruby as the back end. We've got a little Sinatra app, and we've got something called Unicorn in there that is actually is the container that the Ruby app runs in, and Unicorn is able to handle the zero downtime in that it will know how to keep some of the stuff alive whilst the new app's being deployed, and once all the old requests have been served up, the new app takes over. So there's some Unicorn and Nginx are a really good combination for doing this. And if you're in a Java stack, there's obviously perhaps other tools to do this in a Java stack. But you do need to think about session state, where session state's stored. Because it's in the cloud, you could be bounded onto another server. So some issues there.
Yeah, we're sort of lucky in the Rails and Ruby world. It's fairly easy to do this. Well, it's easier, I should say. And especially if you're a legacy system, to actually move towards this would potentially take a lot of work. But even if you can just get closer, I think it's a goal worthy to having a 3-month cycle of deployment. That to me now just sounds crazy. I can't imagine having that anymore. Yeah. And so even if you can just get it down to a month, that would be better, and then you can start thinking about
Sorry, another question. If something goes wrong, the rollback process is another pipeline, or is manually?
Try and roll forward if you can. If you've got a quick build, fix it, roll it out. That's the best strategy. If not, you always have an old copy of the code sitting on the servers that you can switch back to, and that's just managed through symlinks normally.
Yeah.
In Unix or whatever.
Yeah. So because you're releasing small changes all the time, ideally you're going to have pretty small changes on for each one of those things. If you're doing massive migrations of the database, that would change things, of course, but generally you're not doing that because you're releasing so often. They're fairly small little chunks, and so you know how to actually code your way out of it generally. We've never really been shot in the foot at the moment. Is that even how you say that? By some bug, we've rolled forward all the time. We almost did a patch release recently to get something through, but then it was just easier to go through the process, do it properly, commit to GitHub, and push it out that way. So yeah, and anyone can do it. Did you mention that the CEO of Qantas actually deployed?
No, I didn't. Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, so that was at Haru. Anyone, in fact, new starters do it on their first day, deploy the code, and
Alan Joyce, actually, I saw him do it. There you go.
And talk to ops as well.
I have a question about so when you're pushing code to your version control, what state is the code going to be? Does it have to be basically, I think this is ready to be deployed to production?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything you push to version control has to be production ready. It could get deployed to production.
That's where feature toggles come into it. If it's not ready for people to be using, then you've got it behind some sort of toggle.
Yeah.
That toggle may just be a page that's not accessible to people.
Yeah, it's hidden, it's dark essentially in production.
How do you manage the risk of somebody committing code that might be broken but not committing tests to highlight that code? So if you don't have a test and therefore your test package is pass, that code will be all the way through.
Yeah.
How do you manage that in the process?
We try and practice test-driven development. But obviously people can commit tests or code that hasn't been tested, and that's just discipline of the team.
Yeah, that's a team-based problem.
Code coverage tools and things that you use to try and highlight that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, code analytics or analysis to find bugs.
Currently using Code Climate, which is pretty good in Ruby, but you can only use that once you've deployed. It's not something you run on your own. In your dev process, it's once you've actually in GitHub you can actually get code metrics. But you can if you've got to think about things like that. If you put code coverage sort of like limits in your build, so you've got to be over 80% or something like that, and that breaks the build, then you've got to think about, all right, now I can't deploy to production. So there's always trade-offs with this sort of stuff.
We've just got 1 minute left. if there's any questions, we're going to be around for the rest of the day, so feel free to come and talk to us or come and talk to anyone from DS. And start small, step by step.
This was the most popular.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Popular meme.
Yeah.
It's working well. I
thought that one wasn't funny, but I guess most people use computers here. So, yeah.
Capture metrics are really cheap. Find a minimal change. That's a really hard thing to do. Just keep paring it back until you get to that smallest thing that you can do in half a day or a few hours. Get it out there, experiment, and make deployments easy. The easier you can make deployments, then the more fun you're going to have. Some great books. You've probably heard of some of these. Lean Startup by Eric Reeves. That's really good. Continuous Delivery. And if you like a bit more of a fictional thing, then The Phoenix Project is also a really good book. It's a fictional story about DevOps. If there's any questions, feel free. Have a great rest of your conference and have fun.